Well, good evening, and thank you for joining us for the District 9 virtual town hall meeting on the City of San Antonio's fiscal year 2021 budget. This is an opportunity to hear a presentation on the budget and ask questions. And I'm going to turn it over to our District 9 Councilman, John Courage, to kick things off for us. John, I think you just hit your mute button, but take it away when you're ready.
Thank you, Jeff. And welcome to all my friends and neighbors from District 9. I really am glad that many of you are tuning in at this time. You're having an opportunity to hear an important presentation about our city budget. I think all of you know that that's one of the primary jobs of the City Council every year is to put together a budget, and it takes a lot of moving parts to do that. I'm very pleased tonight to see so many of our city staff available to help us with this presentation. And I think you're going to find it's very interesting. Of course, I think everybody recognizes this has been a very challenging year for all of us, whether it's your personal economics or it's the city's economics. And so I think this year, our budget is something very critical for you to be hearing about and asking questions about so that you have a complete understanding of what we're doing. One thing I will say about this budget that I'm very proud of is that we will still provide every bit of the services that you as a resident of our district and as a citizen of San Antonio have come to expect from your city council. We may have had to tighten our belts, but I'm really pleased that I know that this budget is going to continue to provide the kind of services that you expect from your city. So with that, I'm eager to go ahead and hear the presentation, as all of you are. And I thank you for tuning in, and we will have an opportunity for some questions in just a little while. So Jeff, thank you, and go ahead and do the introductions.
Great, Councilman, thank you. And if everyone on the call would just hit their mute buttons so we don't have any interference. Just a little housekeeping for folks here. So this is streaming on Facebook, on the city's website, on our TV channels, on TVSA. We've been fielding questions in advance through 311, through our email, through social media, but it's not too late. If you want to submit a question, do so in the comments on our Facebook feed that's live right now, and we'll get them in real time and try to answer all of them. You might see that there are a number of folks on this call. These are directors and assistant directors from a number of departments: human services, animal care, public works, our fire department. So they're here to answer a number of those questions. And we're going to start with a presentation from our Deputy City Manager, Maria Villagomez, to give us the highlights of the FY21 budget. Maria, take it away.
Thank you, Jeff. Councilman Courage, thank you for inviting us to this neighborhood budget meeting. We're happy to have a conversation about our city budget for fiscal year 2021. So let me start with a summary of our budget process. As probably most of you know, the city's fiscal year begins October 1 and ends September 30th. So we are right in the midst of this budget process as we are having discussions with the city council before we propose the budget. So our budget is balanced for fiscal year 2021. It's actually $7.7 million less than the current fiscal year. And that is no surprise, as COVID-19 has had an impact on the city's revenues that I will talk about a little later when we are able to get the presentation up and running. So you can see some of those revenues that have been impacted by COVID-19. We have strategic investments included in this budget to address what we have heard from our community, including public health, housing, mental health, as well as homelessness in streets and sidewalks. We are also trying to make sure that our decisions, number one, and very important, do not have an impact on the services that we provide to you, to our residents. Even though with the impact of COVID-19, our basic city services continue, as well as we are able to ensure that we don't have any layoffs of our city employees. As you probably know, here in San Antonio, we have about 160,000 people that are unemployed. So we don't want to add to that unemployment rate. So the budget achieves that balance, making sure that we don't have service reductions to the community. And at the same time, we don't lay off any of our city employees. So let me tell you, one of the first things that we do as part of the budget process is ask you for your priorities before we start developing it. And we have a campaign that is called SA Speak Up. And this year we had about 22,000 residents who participated in this process. And what you shared with us before we started the preparation of the budget is that your top 5 priorities included public health, housing, seniors and youth, public safety, and support for small businesses. So as I talk about the budget, you'll see that we have introduced these very important topics. So let me start with the total city budget. Our total city budget is $2.9 billion, and you see that on the screen. Big 3 components of our budget are restricted funds that is close to $1 billion, and that includes enterprise funds like the airport development services, our hotel occupancy tax that are restricted for specific uses within those guidelines. We have our capital budget is 641 million for next year, and that includes capital construction for the 2017 bond projects that you approved, as well as projects for our airport. And then we have the general fund, and this is the fund that most of you are more interested in. This is 1.2 billion. It supports basic city services like police, fire, streets, metro health, parks, and human services. So let me talk about community investments. We talk about this big budget of $2.9 billion. So based on what you told us, it was important to you. The budget has $342 million that is dedicated to affordable housing, public health, mental health, education, youth services, childcare, seniors, and homeless. Now, as you probably know, like any other city across the country, we were impacted financially by COVID 19. And the federal government provided us some grants to be able to help us in some of those challenges that we're facing. So this 2021 budget includes $291 million in this federal grants, and we're utilizing those funds for a resiliency and recovery plan as we recover from COVID-19, a health implementation plan to ensure that we have sufficient testing, contact investigation, and tracing of COVID-19 cases. We also have funding for childcare, our seniors, and mental health. So let me tell you a little bit about this resiliency and recovery plan. This plan was approved by our city council back in June, and this was funded primarily by the CARES Act funds that we received, and it focuses on 4 pillars: workforce development, that is offering assistance to those individuals that lost their jobs or had their hours reduced because of COVID 19. And this offers from certifications to maybe at the start of a 2-year education with a community college. So they're able to get some level of education and be able to get a better job. So this is more of a long-term investment. Housing security is the other pillar, and you see on the screen there's $50 million allocated to that. As you probably know, there's a lot of people that again lost their jobs and were not able to pay for the rent of their homes or the mortgage of their homes or their apartments. So back in April, the city invested about $25 million for this housing assistance. This $50 million is in addition to that, and it focuses in areas again of rental assistance as well as homelessness and domestic violence. Then we have small businesses, about $30.1 million. The majority of those funds are being dispersed to small businesses that participated in the program. We had an application process, and our economic development department is in the process of providing those grants to those small businesses that qualify. And then digital inclusion. Education is a top priority for the city, and with schools going into virtual sessions, it highlighted the need of addressing digital inclusion in some of our neighborhoods in San Antonio. So, with the assistance of this CARES funds, we're able to partner with 8 school districts across the city, focusing in 50 neighborhoods and those areas where there is more need to be able to connect those students to their school network so they're able to see those classes virtually. So that is our resiliency plan. Now, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the services that have been impacted by COVID-19. No different the restaurants and businesses across the city that had to modify the services they provide to the community or their businesses. We were impacted as well. You probably know that the services that we're providing at our libraries is limited. There's access to digital resources. There's contact-free pickup of books and materials, and we have 9 libraries across the city that are providing managed access to public computers. But our full service is not open yet. We hope that as things continue to improve in managing the virus, that eventually the services will be opening back up to the public. The budget assumes that the services will be open 12 months of the year, so we hope that that will happen soon. Our seniors are one of our priorities in our city budget. And while our senior centers remain closed, our human services department is distributing meals to all of our seniors that have registered to receive that service. Our parks, there's some amenities that remain closed. The trails are open. Our programming has been suspended, but we look forward to the time that we can open back up and continue to provide those services that are important to you. So let me now talk about the general fund and talk about the proposed budget for next year. As I mentioned, the general fund is 1.28 billion, the largest operating fund of the city. This graphic illustrates those revenues that come into our general fund and how those are invested. So let me start on the right-hand side with our CPS payment. The city receives 14% in gross revenues from the utility. That's about 350 million annually. Property taxes, for every dollar that you pay on property taxes, the city gets roughly about 25 cents. That is close to $400 million. And then sales tax in the general fund, there's 1% of the 8.25% that you pay on purchases you make comes to the general fund. That's 295 million. And then we have other resources like EMS transports, park fees, liquor by the drink, etc. So those are the revenues. Now that investment, the majority goes into public safety. Roughly about 64.5% of our revenues are allocated to the police and fire departments, followed by streets and infrastructure, parks, and then the balance, roughly about 25%, is dedicated to important services like our libraries, public health, as well as animal care services, code enforcement, and the services that you see on the screen. Now, as I mentioned, the impact to the city in terms of revenues by COVID-19, overall Cedar revenues is about $127 million next year. So we had to make some reductions in some of our funds. The general fund is one of them. And what you see on the screen is a summary of the proposed reductions that we are including in this year's budget. Now, one of the important things to know that most of these reductions don't have an impact on the services that we provide to you on a daily basis. And that was one of the priorities of the city council, one of the priorities of the city manager. You also can see from this screen, there's 2 years worth of reductions. We anticipate that the economy will take time to recover. So in order to plan for that, we're proposing to the council to adopt reductions for fiscal year 2021 and plan reductions for 2022. If the economy recovers faster than what we're anticipating, we can reinstate some of those reductions in 2022. So just to give you a highlight of these cuts, the first one you see on top and the largest one, we are not going to have any pay increases for our civilian employees. We have a hiring freeze in place for most of positions, except for those essential positions that are needed. And then we have other adjustments, like for instance, we have canceled all of our travel, business travel because of COVID-19, and other small adjustments to personnel. Our street maintenance budget is $110 million on an annual basis. We're reducing it slightly in 2021. It will be 102 million. We also have reductions in police overtime as we're filling vacant positions. Today, we actually graduated a academy class with over 50 cadets that are going to start their probationary period. So because we are filling positions, we're able to reduce overtime. We're also suspending economic incentives, some of our consultant fees, and some of the workforce development agencies that are helping the city with the resiliency and recovery plan. They don't have the capacity to spend the dollars that they typically are allocated on an annual basis. So that is in total some of the highlights of those reductions. Again, with very little impact to the services that we provide to you on a daily basis. So let's move forward now and talk about police services. There's been a lot of conversation about the police department and the services that we provide to the community. What the city manager has laid out to the city council for their consideration is that we have a process by which we discuss police services. This process will engage you, the community, get your thoughts on what you expect the police department to provide services, the encounters that you envision with the police department. So this process will be a 6-month process. We plan to have a draft recommendations to the city council by April of 2021. So let me tell you a little bit how we're going to do that. As you can see on the screen on the left-hand side, we're talking about some foundational issues, things that we can either start working internally or some that have to be contractually negotiated with the Police Officers Association. Discipline and the discipline process, for instance, that is something that we plan to make a priority in our next collective bargaining agreement that we'll begin negotiating next year. We're looking at improvements to our hiring and training, being more transparent with the community, providing more data that is more user friendly, as many of you have expressed interest in some of the reports that the police department produces, and continue our community engagement. You probably are familiar with our safe officers, our community engagement programs. We plan to enhance those and be more proactive and engaged with our community. We want to talk to you about expectations. What are your expectations of the police department? We provide, or we actually get about 2.2 million calls per year. 1.6 million come through the 911 system, and then we have emergency calls, about 600,000 of those. So as we review those calls, for example, we respond to barking dogs, the police department does. So one of the things that we want to evaluate is that the best use of our police officers, or maybe our code enforcement department or the animal care services department can address that call. But we want to have that discussion with the public because you're used to calling 911 and you have expectations of us. So we want to make sure that there's no service loss, whatever we do through this process. As I mentioned, your input is important. This lists some of the stakeholders that we anticipate to engage. Of course, our city council, our public safety committee, neighborhood associations, grassroots organizations, business groups, schools and universities. The city manager has talked about focusing on 3 areas: violence prevention, homelessness, and mental health. Homelessness and mental health, perhaps we could have an alternate delivery method, not necessarily the police department addressing those questions, but maybe a partnership with human services and Metro Health to provide better service to the community. And again, with the goal of having a draft plan for council consideration by April. So that's what I wanted to share about police services. moving on to domestic violence. This is one of the areas that we're focusing in the budget. We're recommending the creation of a violence prevention division within our Metro Health Department. With the funding that we have in the budget and the grants that we have received from the federal government, this division is about $8.9 million. Three main programs that this division will be focusing on: gun violence, domestic violence, child and youth violence as well. We are adding 60 new positions to our Metro Health Department to expand and enhance some of these programs. We're also transitioning about 20 positions from the police department that are currently focused in crisis response. We believe with this transfer and them working, they will still continue to work with the police department, but also with Metro Health. We'll have a better coordination in how we address violence prevention in our community. Mental health is another priority that we've heard from the SA Speak Up survey that we did. And we have a total investment of $6 million. And what we're focusing on is providing assistance to those individuals that have mental health issues that need assistance with drug treatment services. Some of our homeless population have mental issues that we hope to better address by coordinating more work internally and providing them with the services that they need, so they're not on the streets, and also supporting children and families. So the budget sets aside $500,000 for an alternative mental health response option that we're going to be working over the next few months to have a recommendation to the council. It could be a partnership with a nonprofit organization or another health provider. So homelessness, as we've gone through this budget process and I talked to different neighborhood associations, homelessness is an issue that we have right now here in San Antonio. With COVID-19, we suspended some of our homeless outreach efforts that we do throughout the year. We did not want to be moving homeless around because of COVID-19. We also had to work with our homeless shelter to make sure that we had the different protocols to try to prevent any type of outbreak. But the result is that we are seeing more encampments across the city. So we are recommending to the council that we add a district outreach team, one in every council district and one for downtown. And this will be a partnership between our Human Services Department, Metro Health, Public Works, and the Police Department to identify those areas that need attention, to coordinate and connect homelessness to case management, mental health and substance abuse treatment, shelter options, to build trust. One of the things that we have experienced with the pilot program that we did in District 1 is that constant conversation and contact with our homeless population, it pays off because they get to a point that they trust those caseworkers that are working with them and they're more open to getting services. And then our goal is to transition them to permanent housing or long-term case management and getting them the support that they need. I'm going to switch to another priority, which is affordable housing. With COVID-19, that has been also one of our priorities to make sure that individuals that lost their jobs don't lose their place where they live. So we have been providing rental assistance, mortgage assistance. The budget has $25 million as a combination of federal grants and our general fund. And we're shifting the focus that we had last year, which was production of affordable housing, now to prevent displacement and to provide stabilization to those individuals that are currently in their homes. Then a very important priority that I'm going to talk about now is infrastructure. This is something that has been a priority for most of our districts, and that is streets and sidewalks. So the budget has $102 million for street projects across the city and $18 million for sidewalks, also projects across the city. just to share with you, and this is just some highlights on the projects in District 9. You'll see here that we have Park Ranch from Encino Rio to Cul-de-sac. We have Goodway Forest to Bluff Lane Drive to Wood Valley. For sidewalks, we have a sidewalk project on West Avenue from Silver Oaks to Anchor. And these are just a few of the projects. Our Public Works Department has a complete list of the projects that we are going to be working on in District 9, and they can provide that complete list to you if you're interested in learning more about that. Now, capital construction, as I mentioned, the 2017 bond projects that you approved in 2017, most of them are under construction or about to begin construction. Here is some of the highlights in District 9. You'll see from street projects like a Bitters Road intersection and sidewalks to Steuben Ranch, the development of that property as a park, our District 9 Senior Center, in McAllister Park, to name a few. I'm going to switch gears now to tell you a little bit about those revenues that have been heavily impacted by COVID-19. Our hotel occupancy tax, as well as our convention center and our Alamo Dome revenues, have been significantly impacted. This particular chart provides you with this revenues going to 2015 to 2020. You can see in 2020, we adopted a budget of 129 million for this revenues last year. Our estimate for this year is 69 million. So it's about a 40% reduction in this revenues. We anticipate that things will be slightly better in 2021, and we're estimating about 78 million. However, most of our events, the Alamo Dome and the Convention Center, have been canceled since March. So it's been a difficult year for the hotel and the tourism industry, and we hope that things are going to get better. But nonetheless, this is revenues that have been significantly impacted. The airport is another area that where we have seen a decrease. Just to share with you, we get on an annual basis close to 10 million passengers per year coming through the San Antonio International Airport. We're anticipating for this fiscal year about a 50% reduction from that traffic. So that impacts our parking fees, our concession revenues. We are anticipating another decrease in 2021 of about another 11% from the current year. About $34 million in less revenue. I will share with you that the federal government has provided a grant to assist the airport, so that has been very helpful. So no impact to our operations. We had to delay some projects, maintenance projects, as well as some capital construction. So now I'm going to move to our solid waste management fund. There's the good news is that there's no rate increases in the solid waste management fee. We wanted to share with you really to encourage those of you that still have the large brown car, the 96-gallon container, and you're paying $28.50 a month. If you switch to the smaller can, the 48-gallon container, you save $120 a year. So we encourage you to switch to the smaller card and to recycle more. So what are the next steps in our budget process? We are having conversations with the council. We have budget work sessions twice a week. We'll continue to have those through September 16. We're here asking you for your input. That will continue through September 1. There's 2 public hearings that are virtual on September 2nd and the 10th on the budget. And then council is scheduled to consider the budget for adoption on September 17th. If you're interested in learning more about the budget, we have a lot of information on the city website under the budget office. We also have a budget transparency tool if you're interested in learning more about the line item budget for each of our departments. That's also available to you. So in summary, there's still a lot of uncertainty in the economy here in San Antonio and across the country. We at the city continue our strong financial management and making sure that we're being good stewards of your dollars, ensuring that we're focusing on the response and the recovery programs of COVID 19. And very importantly, the team here with me today, we are committed to continuing to service the community and provide those critical services that you expect from us on a daily basis. That concludes my presentation. And Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great, Maria. Thank you very much. Councilman, you talked about the importance to you of services not being cut. Now that a budget has been proposed and there's still another month or so before the council ultimately votes to adopt the budget, what's important to you in terms of feedback from your council district? Just unmute yourself there, Council.
Okay, does that sound better?
Yes.
Okay, good. So, we had another meeting just the other day as well. So people in the community have had an opportunity to hear what we're proposing for a budget. I want people to give us feedback. I want to understand if there are some concerns, some more explanations and details that people want to understand about their budget. But I also want people to know that I know my fellow council people aren't really finished in looking at it very deeply. But I have to say, honestly, considering the very difficult financial situation that we face as a city, I think that we're really looking at one of the best possible budgets we could have managed under the circumstances. This is my fourth budget as a representative of the people from our district. And every time we're always looking at ways of expanding services and trying to add to what we provide in the way of services and benefits and support for the people in our district and in the city. This year is no different. We are always looking, are there other services, better services, ways we can expand those services for people in our community. But this is just one of those very, very challenging years in trying to come up with that. And I feel like we're more than holding our own. You just explained, Maria, some of the streets and sidewalk services that are being planned, some of the things on capital improvements. Just so people know, there are about 103 street maintenance programs that are scheduled for this year in District 9, 24 programs to redo pavement markings, 40 programs to reduce school pedestrian safety needs, and 7 drainage issues that are going to be addressed. So although we just touched on a few in your presentation, there are many, many other projects that are scheduled to be undertaken this year to continue to go ahead and support the quality of life that people have come to expect in District 9 and throughout our community. And I'm going to continue to look to make sure we're finding all of the funding we can, but we're not abandoning any important issues that we face in this community. So I feel good about where we're headed, but I want to hear from people in our district, any of their concerns about these things, and I'll bring them forward to council as we discuss this further over the next 3 or 4 weeks.
Councilman, thank you. Just a reminder to anyone watching, if you want to submit a question, you can do so on the Facebook comments and we'll get it in real time. One of the items that Maria didn't touch on in the slides, because it's obviously a very big, expansive budget, but that we always get questions about are animal care services. And Heber Lefgren's here, the director of ACS. Heber, you all have had to change a lot about your operations in response to COVID. Would you talk about that and what your budget is going to be focused on in the next year?
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. Thank you for the community. Animal Care Services, like many organizations, we are a public safety. We provide services for the community to be able to promote and to encourage responsible pet ownership as a means to be able to keep our community safe and to improve the health and well-being of the community. Now, that means that when COVID arose, we still have the obligation to continue to provide services, which meant that my team had to go back and reinvent nearly every process to be able to keep people safe. That includes reinventing how we do adoptions, how we interact with our community members when we're in the public, how do we respond to service requests. And so we went through and reinvented everything. Now we did have plans and we're prepared for the worst case scenario. Luckily, here in San Antonio, we never reached that point to where we actually had to decrease services. And so I'm proud to say that with our modified adjustments, that during COVID, we were able to stay fully engaged and fully working and continue to provide the services that the residents of San Antonio has depended upon in the past. And so that includes responding to service requests. And so again, I am proud to say that we never had to reduce our response rates or our response time during COVID-19. Now, when we look into the year 2021, we will continue to provide, the budget does allow us to continue to provide those same services to the community, and we are prepared to be able to do that. That means that all of our successful programs, the programs that we did in the field to address animal-related issues, as well as our adoption program and our rescue program, will be fully funded in fiscal year 2021. It's important for everybody to know that, especially during COVID, that we are still open. We are still providing services. If you are a resident who has been thinking about, or a family who's been thinking about adopting, we are open and we are still doing businesses, and we still have wonderful pets that need to be placed. If you are looking, you can either call at 207-4PETS, or you can go online where you can schedule an appointment to come in and to take a look at the wonderful pets that we have. Likewise, for those residents who have animal-related issues, we are addressing those, and so you can call 311 to notify them, and we will respond as we have.
Great, Heber, thank you very much. Here's a question for Dr. Colleen Bridger, who many people in the community may know as both an assistant city manager and our interim Metro Health director. Dr. Bridger, public health was top of the list in the budget survey this year, not surprisingly. A lot of it probably based on COVID. How is your department focused on, how is your department balancing the implementation of the health transition plan, in other words, responding to COVID, while at the same time managing all the other things that a public health department does?
Well, we have been working, the staff at Metro Health have been working just tirelessly over the last 6 months. I really do want to give a shout out to them. Not only have they responded to the pandemic, but they've also been on the front lines responding to the hurricane this week as well. So they have been working really, really hard. But as you saw, there's a new division being added to the health department focusing on violence prevention. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes to make that a seamless transition. We're also fortunate to be able to have a great partner in the School of Public Health, with whom we're contracting to do some of the work around case investigations. And so we are this month able to transition some of the case investigation work, COVID-19, to the School of Public Health, which will free up some of our health department staff to focus on things like flu shots and asthma prevention, children, diabetes prevention. The good news about that is we still have those folks available should there be another surge and they're needed, but in the meantime, they can go back to doing their real job.
Thank you, Dr. Bridger. I don't know that most people may not know that the fire department is a very close ally and partner with Metro Health in terms of COVID response. And there's a question here to Chief Vance Mead about the Mobile Integrated Health Program. We call it MIH. Would you explain what that is and how that is being deployed in this COVID response?
We use our MIH team to previously, before COVID, to go out to different areas in the city that had special needs, people that were often being transported multiple times or didn't have the support that they needed, whether it be to meet doctors, to meet hospital visits, maybe they didn't have all the social work set up for them. And so we would go up and connect all those dots for them so that each area would be able to give them the proper help. And then now that COVID's come along, we've partnered with Metro Health in a number of areas, assisting them with doing the testing, helping run some of the places that are set up for the big tests. As a fire department, we're used to doing large events like that, just like we've got the hurricane situation right now. And so this is just like almost like a giant hurricane situation that's been going on for months, and the organization that takes, and that's something that we are that we're trained to do from day one whenever we get in the fire department. So those are areas that we're helping with there via MIH and the rest of the fire department.
Chief, thanks a lot. Jessica Dovalina from our Human Services Department. The residents of District 9 want to know more about the D9 Senior Center being constructed. Tell us more, please.
I'm happy to talk about that, and I just want to commend Councilman Courage. He was one of the strongest advocates in getting a senior center in the district, and Council District 9 is actually our only district in the city that doesn't have a comprehensive senior center. So this is something that we're all very excited about. Right now, we have 52 sites in the community. 10 of those are comprehensive senior centers. Our largest is the Northeast Senior Center in Council District 10. And I'm happy to say this is going to be as large as Council District 10. We're anticipating 800 to 1,000 folks that are going to be attending the center. And of course, we're looking at how do we do that in a different way with COVID-19 and the aftermath of that, but want to make sure that we get folks engaged and utilize the space. So it's going to be about 28,000 square feet, built from the ground up. It's right next to Walker Ranch. Going to have multiple multi-purpose rooms, arts and crafts, classrooms, meal service, and just it'll further our commitment to make sure that we're ensuring seniors are not isolated in their homes, that we have opportunities for them to engage. It'll give them transportation to the center, and then also provide a hub to really transport things to the seniors in their homes. So very excited about that. Construction should be completed in December of 2021, and we're looking at opening of January 2022.
Exciting. Another improvement coming to District 9 is the Clausen-Stubing Ranch Park near Stone Oak Park. And we just got a question on Facebook about that. Is the construction going to start in the fall? If not, when is it going to start? I don't think we have our parks folks on here. Not sure if Christy can answer that. Okay, and then I'm sure the council would be happy to talk about it too. You're on mute, Christy. I think you still are. Councilman, do you want to take it away, and then we'll see if
Christy, you can join in as soon as you get your mic going. I understand how that can be. Yeah, the Clausen-Stubing Park Ranch is really developing well. We just had a meeting about it last week, and it's ready to go out in the near future for bids, and then it'll go through redevelopment. It's still 24 months away from being opened for public use, but it's going to be a great park. Walking trails, it's going to have ball fields, it's going to have soccer fields, and it's going to be open to the public. It's a little different than some of our other parks where we've leased out parks to other organizations to manage the facilities. We want to have these park fields and this park open for the general public use on a regular basis. And so, we're really excited about it, and I think people are going to be very, very pleased with it. But it's really a phase one because there's more amenities I'd like to see added to this park as we go into the future. And that's something we'll be looking at future bond sites. Christy, did you want to add anything now? Are you on?
Okay, now can you hear me? Okay, great. So sorry. No, I think Councilman, you hit all the points. We're wrapping up design. We're going to be entering into construction early next year. And you are correct that it is going to be complete in multiple phases. And we are working with parks to plan those multiple phases. So we're excited about that as well.
Christy, thanks. A question just came in from Brian and Kristen Opaska. Is anything being done in regards to litter in San Antonio? I know we don't have our solid waste folks on here. Is there anyone who... Great, Christy, go for it.
Sure. So under our stormwater division, we do regularly sweep the streets. Downtown is actually swept every single night. And then we have our arterials that are swept 4 times a year, along with our local and collectors street sweep 2 times a year. And what that does is it helps remove the litter in the street so it doesn't end up in our creeks and streams and waterways. So that is one way that we do address the litter from Public Works.
I'd like to add something to that too. You know, a lot of people, I hear criticism about trashy streets and everything, but a lot of times they're talking about what they see on the interstate on 281 or 1604 or I-10 or 35. And, you know, those are not the streets that the city maintains. And so, you know, we end up taking the blame for that sometimes, but a lot of times it's, you know, beyond our control. But when it comes to the city streets, we have regular maintenance times for doing that. But I think it's important to also realize that, you know, we need to be looking out for our neighborhoods ourselves. And I've worked with several neighborhoods that have done walks along their streets to clean up trash that kind of blows off the sidewalk into people's yards and along the fence lines and things like that. But if you have a street problem that you think is really bad, you just need to call us and call my office, and we'll get it out there and we'll get it taken care of.
Councilman, thank you. I just got a comment that came in from Cindy Munch saying she's glad for the open government and the presentation of the budget, and she'd prefer to have this kind of meeting online even once we're all able to come back downtown for a meeting. I'll just say that in my department is Government Public Affairs, we've learned a lot through this COVID environment about ways that we can use technology and other ways, even the telephone, to be able to connect people. And I don't foresee any of that going away. I think once we are able to be back in person, we'll still be deploying these types of measures to make sure that people can participate no matter where they are. One example of that is we now have an e-comment function where you can go on the website, look at the council agenda, and offer your comment, your input on any item on the agenda. You can do it by email. You can even do it by telephone. You can call and leave a message and share your comment, and that gets to all of the council members. And just for context, think about that at the federal or state level. You cannot call in to the floor of the Texas legislature and tell them what you think about a bill, or tell Congress what you think about something they're about to vote on. And yet the council has opened up the process to the point that people can do that here at the local level. So Cindy, we appreciate that comment. That's really, really great. Councilman, I don't know if you have anything to add. I got one more question for Dr. Bridger.
You know, I was just going to piggyback on what you said. I've learned a lot from the experience of using online contact, whether it's Zoom or Teams or WebEx. And I think that what I've found is that a lot of people are very comfortable sitting at home, whether it's at a work desk or on their comfy chair with a laptop in their lap, being able to listen to and share thoughts and concerns. There's nothing like face-to-face. There's no doubt about that. And I'm looking forward to continuing that as quickly as possible. But it has to be safely. But in the interim, I think all of us have learned a lot about the value of bringing people together this way and being able to look at one another, hear one another, give a little back and forth on many of these issues. And I think it's helped me, and I know it's helped all of us stay as in close contact as we can with our constituents around the city.
Great, Councilman. Well said. Thank you. And Dr. Bridger, there haven't been any questions in this town hall about it, but there's certainly been a discussion throughout the summer about reallocating resources towards things like public health and housing. And so one of the things this budget does, as Maria talked about, is shift some of the crisis response teams who deal with violence prevention, domestic violence, to the Metro Health Department to be part of a bigger violence prevention division. How's that going to work in public health? Why is it important that it be in Metro Health in terms of responding to this issue?
One of the things we know about violence is that it can be prevented. And one of the things that the health department, I think, really excels at is those prevention-oriented activities. The other thing that we are starting to understand more and more is violence's effect on long-term health. And especially when children are exposed to or are victims of violence, that has a lifetime adverse effect on their health. And so we have, for the last several years, really been focusing on how can we prevent violence from occurring, especially among our children, and how do we help children recover from any violence that they've experienced. So being able to create an entire division at the health department that focuses on preventing violence from happening in the first place, preventing retaliatory violence, which is something we often see among gangs, and helping people recover from violence, whether it's a domestic violence situation or a child abuse situation. Consolidating all of those together in one division at the health department is a really exciting opportunity for the city and for the health department, and I think makes a lot of sense.
Dr. Bridger, thank you. Maria, before we have the councilman close us out here, is there anything else you'd like to add on the budget, which is obviously your baby every year, your big initiative?
Thank you, Jeff. Just continue to encourage the community to participate. It's very important to us to hear from you when you think about this proposed budget. I know it's very important for the council before they make their final deliberations and take that final vote. So continue to participate.
Councilman?
Well, thank you, Jeff, and thank all of you for being available to go ahead and take questions. And, just being here and letting the people in the community see your face, know that you're listening, that you are concerned, and that you're professional in what you do should really help reinforce to the community that we've got a great team working on behalf of all of you in this city. And I've certainly learned that and appreciate that in working with you for the last 3.5 years. The budget is a big issue. It's something that we're not finished with. We'll all continue to look at it to try and find any other ways of savings or doing additional enhancements that we can do within the structure of what we have to work with. And so I feel good about the direction we're heading in, but I'm going to be staying on top of it until that final vote. There are a couple of other issues I'll just throw out, though, that I know people are concerned about. Of course, coronavirus is one of them, and you know that the city has been doing a great job dealing with this very, very severe problem. And I want to commend all of the people involved in Metro Health and the fire department, and of course, Dr. Bridger, who's been overseeing so much of that. But it isn't over. And so, I recommend everybody continue to wear your mask, continue to practice social distancing, to continue to wash your hands frequently. And remember that we're all in this together when it comes to the coronavirus. Two other things that I'm looking at is, we're looking to have a 1/8% sales tax election in November that is going to be for COVID recovery and for training people to get new jobs, because we've lost so many jobs that probably are not going to return. That's another big issue. I want everybody to be educated about it, and I'm certainly still working on making sure we have the best program available for that. But something that goes along with that, that's a big concern for people in our district, is protection of the Edwards Aquifer and the continued development of the Creekway Trail System. And I want to let you know that I am absolutely committed. And I think I'm seeing the development of a very good plan to ensure the continued support for protecting the aquifer by obtaining more conservation easements over the aquifer for the next 10 years. And so I feel good about that being available to us to ensure that very important aspect of protecting our water system. And I know that we're working on the trail system. We're going to continue. And I think we've got a good partnership going with Bexar County on that. So those are all issues besides the budget that we're looking at right now that I'm paying close attention to. And I'll try and continue to keep everybody in our district informed about them. So thank you.
Wonderful. Councilman, thank you. Thank you to everybody who participated. Thank you to my colleagues who took time on their Friday evenings here to answer questions. For all of the residents out there, you can always engage with the city, not just on the budget, but on many other issues by going to saspeakup.com. That's where we put all of the input and participation opportunities on a number of issues. And we will hope to see you again soon, maybe in person one of these days. So thanks again. Have a good evening, everyone. Good night.
Thank you again, everybody.